While most of my friends spent a lot of their time playing cricket and talking about sports endlessly, I was this curious child who spent a lot of time in the kitchen, just trying to understand to cook, understanding the nuances behind food, and just appreciating people who cooked. The earliest memory of food that I have being made at home is the puliyodre, or the tamarind rice, or puliyogare if you can call it in Kannada, made by my mom and grandmom. It's like this element of drama that comes alive when they decided to make it. Antique brass vessels would be brought down from the attic, polished like how it is, glistening there. And it'll be filled to the brim with rice, powder, oil, spice pastes and whatnot. And they would regale me with stories of their childhood and the kind of food that they ate as they mixed it. So it's almost like their labor of love that came through. So I say the love that is puliyodre. So for me, puliyodre or any food for that matter was all about love. It was about conversations. And most importantly, it was about memories. Food has that ability to transport you. You smell something and immediately you are taken back to your childhood. So that is what food does to me. So for some weird reason, I did an MBA. Maybe I should have done culinary arts. Whether being in the US, I'm not really sure how much I took away from my B school degree, but being in the US just exposed me to a lot of food, international cuisine, street food, Michelin star, and just shamelessly inviting yourself over to people from international communities and saying, hey, I'm home, can you make something of your choice? But with that exposure there, I feel my palate evolved, and with that kind of a nuanced palate, I moved back to India, and I thought I could showcase the love for food that I had through an entrepreneurial venture, and I launched something called Peter App. I'm not sure if many of you would have seen Peter App, but these were these kiosks shaped like an auto rickshaw at vantage points in the city that served fresh and healthy wraps like kati rolls. I realized that running a food business needed much more than just being passionate about food. I opened up a Pandora's box and I had to call it quits. So it's something that, something that you nurtured just went down the drain. So I was dejected, and I was the connect that I had with food was lost. So I felt a disconnect there. Very cinematic. I went on this soul-searching trip. See that there, with the train there? So I went on this trip, and I chose Tirunelveli because I had not heard much about the food from the region, and other than the Tirunelveli halwa. So I went there, and it was the time of harvest. Just look at that. Just crisp. It's just green. Thoranda vayalveli அப்படினு சொல்லுவாங்க இல்லையா அந்த மாதிரி. So it was so beautiful, and the beauty about that was there were farmers there. They were overjoyed with that year's bountiful harvest that they had, and they were singing. And the other side, I saw people kind of getting together to cook. And the interesting bit about the cooking experience, what I saw, was people from various communities, caste, creed, religion, socio-economic conditions, pooled in their resources to make that particular recipe. So for example, someone brought rice, someone brought lentils, someone brought vegetables, someone brought oil, firewood, and they kind of cooked something together. This was just my dream come true. I'm there standing there and watching them, and they are singing, someone's reaping their harvest, and they are cooking. So as usual, I shamelessly invited myself over, and I said, hey, what is it that you guys are making? Knowing very well they will extend an invitation to eat. They did, and I enjoyed the meal with them. As I ate, they regaled me with the entire region's culinary history, the kind of food that they make at home, songs from the region, legends, and just history as such. And that is when it dawned on me, this is exactly what I should be doing. It turns out that the recipe that I actually ate, what they made, was called the Kutan Choru. Kutan, choru, split that way, is basically made when people kind of get together. A time during harvest, or time when people get together at a time of harvest using the fresh produce. That was the eureka moment when I thought, this is exactly what I should be doing, documenting heirloom recipes, traditions, culinary practices, and legends across India. That's me shamelessly eating the kutan choru. So from there, I set out on a mission. I'm going to share with you two stories from two regions in the south of India that will give you a culinary history of the region. Even though I've documented stories and recipes from places across India, I specifically chose to showcase the south of India for two things. I want to let the world know that there's more to South Indian food than idli, dosa, mendu vada, and sambar. I've had this, guys. So off I went on this trip to Kongunad. Kongunad is Salem, Erode, Tirupur, Coimbatore, and the entire region there. So I went there, and its culinary history is very, very unique. There are two recipes that stood out to me. One was the Pallipalayam chicken and the Pachapuli rasam. The Pallipalayam chicken, it's probably a phenomenon today. It's available in most of the restaurants, both here and out of India. But would you believe if I told you these recipes came out of sheer poverty? So like I said, many, many years ago, this was an entire region struck by poverty, and people had large families to feed. They could afford only one chicken, and they cut the chicken in small cubes. They cut coconuts the same size as chicken, added very, very minimal masalas, oil and salt, because that's how much they could afford, and cooked up a very rustic dish called the Pallipalayam chicken. The reason they added coconuts is because when small kids bit into these pieces, they wouldn't know to differentiate between what was chicken and what was coconut. That was the level of poverty. I mean, a sheer creative element that comes out in an adverse situation like this. Same thing with the Pachapuli rasam, which is nothing but tamarind that's been soaking in water for a few hours. It's removed, lots of curry leaves, coriander, salt and spices are added and just mixed without boiling. Why didn't they boil? Because they couldn't afford firewood. So what I thought from this is adversity is the mother of all creations. I mean, here you are in a situation very, very adverse. You have all odds against you. You have very, very minimal resources. But what happens? Your creative best comes out. From there, I go to Kovilpatti. Kovilpatti is a very dry, barren, arid region, so no cultivation possible whatsoever. But yet, I realized that I saw large lands filled with peanuts that's been drying. So I struck up a conversation with the locals and I asked them, hey, where is this coming from? You don't have any kind of cultivation here. Where is this from? For which he tells me that this is an age-old practice where peanuts have been sent all the way from Gujarat down south to Kovilpatti for it to be dried and sent back. I said, okay, that probably makes sense because you have Gujarat, which is the largest producer of peanuts in India, and people down south are making use of the abundance of sunlight. But what did the locals start doing? They started trading in peanuts. They started extracting oil from peanuts. So the cuisine as such is peanut oil intensive. You'll have the local trading people there called the Nadars. They have oil shops. So enna kadanu solluvom illaya andha madri. So they have oil shops. It's the entire cuisine that is also influenced. So peanut chutney, they even make peanut rasam. And last but not the least, you have the Kovilpatti kadla mittai. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you. So this is nothing but a story of a peanut that travels all the way from Gujarat, all the way from Gujarat down south, for it to be just dried and sent back, but morphs into a phenomenon that influences an entire region's trade, commerce, economics, you name it. Everything is influenced in this region. So what I have really understood from this segment is food has no boundaries. I mean, there are dishes that we eat on a day-to-day basis that are not even Indian. Forget South Indian. We've always had the South Indian, North Indian divide. But take, for example, we have coconuts that have come from Papua New Guinea, asafoetida that came from Afghanistan. Tomatoes were considered toxic until 300, 400 years ago. Red chilies, without the Portuguese, we wouldn't even be having that as part of our cuisine. But yet, this forms a staple in what we eat every day. So every dish that we know and love today has traveled from afar. The reality is that every well-known dish is the result of a long and complicated history of fusion, emigration, and circumstantial adaptation. That's really what food is. So to kind of summarize and conclude, I've spent the last few years all across India to document food, and with the 2,000 hours that I've spent documenting 600 such inspiring stories from people and over 5,000 quaint heirloom recipes that you can't find on Google, what I've realized is food brings people together. Adversity leads to creativity, and food is beyond boundaries. Thank you very much.